How did you spend your summer vacation? We spent ours with role-playing games, because we're cool and awesome. On this week's show, we have Dragon Quest IX, Puzzle Quest 2, Ron Gilbert's Death Spunk, and a pre-release look at Etrian Odyssey 3. All that plus our quote of the week. It's July 22nd, 2010. My name is Tim Spaeth, and this is the GameCritics.com podcast. For the 37th time, it's the world's most beloved podcast, as voted on by our families, the GameCritics.com podcast. This week we're talking about some of the hottest, sexiest RPGs on store shelves right now. Let's meet the crew who will be talking about them. Chi Kong Liu, he's the Game Critics owner and founder. What's up, Chi?
Hey, Tim, how's it going?
Great to be back with you. It's been 3 weeks? 3 weeks.
Yeah, too long, my friend.
Too long. Yes, indeed. Brad Gallaway is the Game Critics senior editor. What's the Hapsby factor?
Hey, guys. What's going down?
Changed the way I talk in the last 3 weeks. It's one of many changes you'll be seeing this week. Mike Bracken is the horror geek and the senior editor of Lookin' Good. Mike.
Yes, I am.
Tell it like it is, brother.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Happy to be here on the 37th show since I am 37 years old. So I got nothing else.
Nice.
That was a good bit of synchronicity there, though.
Wasn't it? Yeah, it's like everything's coming together this week. This is going to be the most amazing show ever.
Numerology ahoy. I love it.
Putting pressure on us already.
Yes.
Actually, I have a birthday coming up in a few days. I'm narrowly behind you, Mike. I'll almost be where
what day? What day is your birthday?
It's the 20th, July 20th.
Okay, my dad's is the 23rd, so. Well, I'll be 38 in October, so you'll only be close for a little bit.
Very well. So I won't be too depressed then.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mentioned RPGs. Hot, sexy RPGs. Let me throw some names out. How about Dragon Quest IX? Huh? How about Etrian Odyssey 3? Puzzle Quest 2? How about Death Spunk? Yeah, we're going to tell you everything you need to know about all of those games. That's how we've been spending our hiatus, and we'll do that in just a moment. But first, as always, it's our quote of the week.
As always.
As always.
As of this week, as always.
As of this week. You know, we've never done it before. Nevertheless, it is starting now, as always. Now, here's how it works. Here's what this is. I am going to read a gaming-related quote. It might be from a developer, might be from a critic, a millionaire executive, a lowly forum poster. It's going to be something timely, something relevant, and each of us will give a rapid-fire opinion on the quote. Think of it as a warm-up, as an icebreaker to the show to loosen us up. Now, the quote, of course, is chosen by my producer, Felipe, who is bringing over a sealed envelope as we speak. Thank you, sir. I have not seen the contents of the envelope. I have no idea what is in it. I am opening it now.
Man, this is good radio.
Yeah.
Got sound effects going on.
Suspenseful.
Practical.
A Foley work. A Foley work deserves an Oscar. Whatever they give radio shows.
Here we go. Oh my. Now, Felipe hand wrote this, so forgive me if I can't read it at all, or if it's in another language. Here we are. Okay. This week's quote comes from Microsoft General Manager Dave McCarthy. How many of you are familiar with Dave McCarthy?
Do not know him.
No?
Nope.
Chi?
Does not ring a bell.
Brad?
I might have had a beer with him once, although that might be a completely different Dave. It's kind of hazy.
All right. I don't know him either, so this should be particularly juicy for us. Here is the quotation. He says, "When we started on this journey, we knew we were creating an entirely new genre of entertainment that would be a continually evolving concept. We're very proud of the 1 versus 100 team and their accomplishments, and are excited to apply what we've learned to future programming." Now, I believe this is in reference to the cancellation of the 1 versus 100 game that was announced a few days ago on the Xbox Live Arcade. Now, if I'm not mistaken, none of you played 1 versus 100. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
Yes.
All right. I did, and I enjoyed it very much. So let me ask you this. Does this announcement surprise you? And do you think there is a future for appointment gaming, online game shows, or playing games with 100,000 people at once? I would like your opinion on the matter, on any of those items. And also, could you tell me why you never tried the game? And I'm going to start with Mike Bracken.
Oh, I knew it. I'll tell you why I never tried the game is because I didn't have an Xbox for a long time. I honestly, being someone who was on a game show for 2 years, it sounded really cool to me, and because I'm a big trivia dork, so that was my excuse for never trying it. From what I understood, that it actually was doing fairly well, so I was kind of surprised they pulled the plug on it. I don't know if that's actually the case or just what I had heard and was incorrect, but I'm sort of surprised about it. I don't know, though, that there's going to be a future where we're going to see a lot of things like that, where you get people together at a certain time to do this kind of huge gaming thing, but I think there's room for maybe 1 or 2 of them out there. That's just my quick take on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had forgotten that you were an actual participant on a television game show.
Yeah.
And I guess subconsciously remembered that. That's why I went to you first.
They don't call me the horror geek for nothing. I mean, that was the official title. So
there you go. And the kids can see that on the YouTube, right?
There actually is a YouTube. One of the clips of me losing is actually up on YouTube.
And it was a really easy question, too.
Yeah. Fuck Child's Play, man. I don't know. So, God.
So, Chi, 1 versus 100, why did you never play? And do you think there's a future for this type of game?
I don't play because I didn't play it because I game at really odd hours, and the idea of scheduling just to play with a bunch of people would never work for my schedule to begin with. I was surprised to hear about it because everyone that I heard from, mainly you and some other people, just seemed to think it was a pretty good idea, and it seemed to be successful just from a cursory review. So I was surprised to hear that it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Brad, what about you? Other than just in general not liking things that are fun, what was your?
I actually hate fun of all kinds. That was my first reason for not playing it. No, but actually, it's kind of a twofold reason. I think the first reason is kind of what she said. I mean, my schedule is really erratic. I mean, my day-to-day life does not run from 9 to 5. I'm gone at all hours of the night and day, so I can never schedule anything that would be game-related. I mean, games to me are fun and important, but they're not of top priority. So for me, the idea of actually setting aside time to be online at a specific time, in addition to having a wife, a child, a day job, and a night job sometimes, that just did not work for me whatsoever. The second part to why I never played it was honestly, I don't think that Microsoft did a very good job of explaining it or making it well known or hyping it. I mean, I heard about it when it first came out, and I'm like, oh, okay, some kind of game show. But then after that, I never really heard a good explanation of how you got into it, where online you were supposed to go, how it worked. It was 1 versus 100, 1 versus 100. And it was all the indie people, all the editors and the writers and the journos knew about it. But I've never talked to anybody who was a normal person, like a regular Joe gamer off the street who knew about it or had played it. And honestly, I just, I didn't investigate on my own. And I feel like Microsoft didn't do a good job of getting the information in my hands. And so I just wasn't really motivated to go track it down. So I just kind of let it go. And as far as whether those games have a future, I think that they do. I mean, I think most of the editor and review people that I speak to, they all seem to have spoken about it very highly, and they liked it. I mean, obviously, I think there is kind of a market for it. I don't think it'll be ever like a main attraction to a console, but it seems to me like a good number of people really looked forward to it and had a good time. And I think if Microsoft or whoever offers, good enough prizes or makes it, some kind of good incentive for people to show up, I think that they will. So it may not have been a good fit for me, but from everybody I talked to, it was a good thing. I'm actually surprised it's gone too.
Yeah, I was very surprised. I mean, but I think you hit the nail on the head, Brad, and that is, once you got into the game, there were lots of incentives to play. They were giving away XBLA games, there were achievements to be earned, and it was just a fun game. It was a great trivia game, and one that actually played very well in groups. It was one of the rare situations that I partied up with people, and we answered trivia questions together. But you're absolutely right in that Microsoft, as happens so often with Microsoft things, is they didn't promote it properly. They didn't market it. You never knew when it was on. Even if you logged on to Xbox Live while the game was happening, you had to get lucky and just happen to go to the part of the dashboard where it was being advertised to know that it was happening. I think if Microsoft wanted it to be a massive success, it could have been, but they needed to market it. That's how business works. That's how you sell products, and Microsoft failed there. So I would love to see more game shows. I grew up on game shows. I would love a Price is Right, a Family Feud. Let me play it all the time, though. Don't just schedule it during those tiny hours. And I think that was the problem with a trivia game, is that you can't run the trivia game all the time because you run out of questions. And my guess is they just didn't have somebody to create enough variety of content and enough new questions for it. So hopefully they will come back and revisit that. And my guess is it was just bleeding money, and they decided not to put anything else into it. So I will miss it, but I look forward to the future.
Did they officially say that it just wasn't financially successful, or?
They did not give a reason.
No.
They did not give a reason. It was literally that quote that I read, and that was it. That was it. So
I'm all aboard for an online press your luck.
Yes. Yes.
That's a good idea. I'm all in on that one.
Let's pour one out for the late Peter Tamarkin.
Yes.
I named my car after Peter Tamarkin.
Was it Peter or Tamarkin?
It was
or both?
It was the Winkman class light cruiser Tamarkin.
The Winkman.
Well, while we're talking about game shows and stuff, I mean, I think that there's lots of potential for online game shows, and I think especially now that we've got connectivity being such a big part, I mean, I would love to be part of a show where you have contestants and maybe Microsoft or whoever can put up little brief clips of gameplay, like you play like 30 seconds of Gears to see who can rack up the best score, and then you switch to something else, kind of like the Omegathon that they host at PAX, where they have like 10 or 12 games that are all different genres, and so it's to see who can do the best at all of them. I mean, I think it's kind of a really interesting idea. I mean, I could probably think of a dozen other game show ideas that could be applicable to games, so I certainly think there's a market for it. It's too bad that Microsoft kind of dropped the ball on this one.
Like the old Starcade game show.
Yeah, exactly, man. That's way back in the days. I'm sure most people listening to this podcast, all four of them, have never seen that show. Even.
Yeah, I think we gained two new listeners after the last show.
Are we up to 6 now?
Yeah, we like doubled our audience or something.
My God. Nice.
Yep.
No, I think we had 6 and went down to 4, if memory serves. I think the
that's probably more likely.
Yeah, the endless hate caused the two people to drop, but yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's end the quote of the week segment. I think that worked pretty well. I look forward to doing that on future shows. But now let's move on to our main event, RPG Bonanza. All of us, during the time we were away, independently decided to play an RPG, or in some cases more than one RPG, and I thought we would talk a little bit about each RPG and maybe come to some kind of consensus about what makes them great or not great. Or let's start with you, Chi, because you have been playing Dragon Quest IX: Sentinels of the Starry Skies. And if you would, every time you reference the game, please use the complete title.
Oh no!
Dragon Quest IX, Sentinels of the Starry Skies.
I was gonna start nominating that already. The worst subtitle of any game ever.
No,
I can never remember what the combination of those words are.
It doesn't beat Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. I think that's still the worst.
So, Chi, what is your history with Dragon Quest? Have you played? How many of these things have you played? Do you enjoy? Clearly, you enjoy the franchise because you picked up the latest one. What's your history with Dragon Quest?
I played the original on the SNES. Sorry, not SNES, the NES when it first came out, and just bought into the whole JRPG thing right from the start. I mean, I think I was just wanting at the time a little more of a sophisticated game, and that was just right up the alley. And I think I was probably late junior high, maybe early high school years, so that really just hit me right at the right time. I didn't really get into to the later parts until later on when they put them out on the Game Boy titles. So I think I played 1, 2, 3. Played 5 on emulation. I actually haven't played the modern ones, so that's my background on.
So, what compelled you to pick up Episode 9?
It was just good timing. Looking for something to get into, and big fan of Dragon Quest. So, sorry, that wasn't a good answer. There's really
No. I mean, sometimes that's okay. Sometimes that's why we pick up a game. We just felt like picking it up. I mean, when I think of Dragon Quest, I feel like I'm drowning. I feel like I'm suffocating in just this old franchise that hasn't evolved. So, as you've played Dragon Quest, and I'm not sure how many hours you've put into it at this point, is it the same old thing, or is it fresh and new, or is it some combination of the two?
That's the interesting thing about Dragon Quest. On paper, when you read out the details of the game, they sound like every other JRPG out there, and this one's no different. You play this one's got maybe a slightly more original take on it. I mean, only slightly, in that you play like an angel, and there's through some course, and there's an angel world, and I don't remember all the details of like what they call the angels and all that other stuff. What the worlds are called, and that's the funny thing about these games. Once you get into it, the game mechanics just sort of take over, and I just start playing these games because I love the game mechanics, not so much because I'm paying attention to all the little details. But the weird thing about Dragon Quest is once you start playing it, you just can't stop. And I know that we're going to take a lot of heat for this because we've been beaten down on Zelda for so many episodes already, and yet here's Dragon Quest. It's the same thing, it's on the surface at least. It would seem to hit some of the same beats. You go to the same formula. You go to towns, and yes, the only thing different this time is that there's a slightly sort of quantum leapish type storyline where you kind of help dead people and help them on their way to heaven, and you sort of get like a little mana from that. So that's a little bit different, but everything it hits a lot of the same beats. There's the old copper sword, the old pot lid and shield and all that other stuff. But yet for some reason it doesn't feel boring. It doesn't feel tired for some reason.
So let's touch on the Zelda comparison. What do you think it is? I mean, why do we rip on Zelda and give Dragon Quest a pass, or are we giving it a pass? What's the difference?
Well, I think one of the differences right off the bat is Dragon Quest is an RPG, so while some of the details are the same, it's not as predictable. I mean, the problem with Zelda is just flat out predictable. You have to play it one way, the way the game designers set it out for you. So you have to go get the boomerang, get the bomb, and whatever. You can't sort of really deviate in any different order. And one thing about Dragon Quest is even though it hits a lot of the same beats, but you can sort of do things in your own way. You don't have to get the copper sword. You don't have to, necessarily pick this class. And you can totally customize your party. I mean, you get your own character and then 3 other party members. And I was kind of surprised actually that you go to town and you just recruit 3 other characters that you create yourself. It's not like they're other characters that exist in other NPCs that are sort of roaming around and you recruit them. You literally just create them from scratch, and right off the bat, there's sort of a different level of investment just by having that.
Mike, you've played a lot of Dragon Quest.
Yeah, a lot.
Why do you keep coming back to it, and why are you okay with Dragon Quest being the same, but
Do,
not?
do you agree with my assessment as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of things you hit on are very true. The reason I keep coming back to it, I think, is for the same reason I keep coming back to Final Fantasy. They're sort of like, for me, the RPG that started my love affair with RPGs. I mean, those two series back on the NES were my introduction to RPGs, because I wasn't a computer gamer or anything like that. I think for me, part of the reason I'm willing to give Dragon Quest more slack than Zelda is that the problems of the things that Dragon Quest repeats are the things that are indicative of everything that RPGs repeat. I mean, every RPG kind of follows the dungeon town progression and the same names of weapons, because there's only so many friggin' names you can name swords. So every game's going to have like, a bastard sword or, something like that. So I don't mind that so much, but at the same time, I've been a really vocal critic of JRPGs not evolving in any way, and Dragon Quest is certainly not immune from that criticism. I think my problem, though, with Zelda is that it's not so much that the way it doesn't do anything new is that it literally almost seems to follow the exact same template from game to game. Like, you always go to the dungeon where the boomerang is important. You do these things in a step, and they're like always the same steps. So, even though it's like the RPGs all have the same dungeon town things and, the little quests going on, Zelda is like so, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here. It's so rigid in the way it goes from game to game and the way you do things that it just feels somehow more bothersome to me. And that's not to say, like, look, I don't hate Zelda. I have very fond memories, like everyone else my age, of playing the original Zelda on the NES and on the Super Nintendo and all these games and, Ocarina of Time. It's just that I think you're hard on the things you love, and I guess Zelda, I expect after all these years, since it's only one game, not like based on anything like an entire genre of games that have expectations, and Miyamoto's involved, you would sort of expect it to sort of break out of this mold once in a while. Dragon Quest is just fun to me because it's like the prototypical JRPG. I never go into it expecting it to be anything different than what I've seen in the past, but if that's hypocritical, I guess you could call me on that, but I do think there are subtle differences. And I would also add that I think part of the reason that maybe it doesn't get as much flack in America for this is because only recently have we started to get all the games. We missed a bunch of Dragon Quest games in there for a while that we didn't get. So now you're starting to see these people, pick up that these games are all basically the same. But for a long time, we went from like 1, 2, 3, then we didn't get 4, 5. There were like a couple in there we didn't get, and so now we're finally getting them, and you see that. So it might change as time goes forward.
But let me counter that for 1 second though, because I played most of them, and and most JRPGs make me scream running away from them because I just can't stand them. and for whatever reason,
those days.
Yeah, and it's not purely nostalgia, and I'm not a fanboy or anything like that. Being a critic, they have to be somewhat objective, and I'll play these Dragon Quest games, and they just always intrigue me. I think one thing that you hit on, and I don't share the same appreciation for Final Fantasy. Like Final Fantasy VIII basically turned me off from all Final Fantasies thereafter. So
that did that for a lot of people.
Yeah, so to me, those are far from equals, right? For starters, for me. But I think you touched on something interesting there, because what you were saying about how Dragon Quest is almost charming in its way, in that it doesn't try to change certain things, but it does. Like, for example, the swords, right? They don't try to rename the swords. And I think what really drives me up the wall about Final Fantasy is that they try to fake their way through those things. They do try to rename the same things that we know what they are into some fancy other name, and then expect you to think that's innovative. And that's why I can't stand Final Fantasy, right? And I think Dragon Quest is interesting in that they purposely keep a lot of the things the same, but they do try to, and to give the series a little more credit, they do have little changes here and there, little tiny bits of innovation here and there, but they leave some of the old classic stuff alone, and then, tweak some of the other parts.
And the other thing I would add to that is I just think that when it comes to the teams that make the Dragon Quest games, I just think they don't give a shit about about changing it. I think they like what they do, and there's an audience for those games that way. And you could say the exact same thing about the Zelda teams. Miyamoto, he's like, this is the kind of game I want to make, and this is what it is, and you either like it or you don't. So I mean, obviously in that case, I just expect more from him, and I think you see with the way he's innovated in the Mario games and stuff going forward, you kind of wish you'd see that same thing happening with Zelda. Honestly, though, I just think the Dragon Quest guys, they know that these RPGs have moved forward into all this other stuff, because even if you look at Dragon Quest VIII, it's a pretty game. It's really lovely, but I mean, it still plays the same as like the original Dragon Quest games, except you don't have to like click a menu to open a door anymore. But yeah, so I just think honestly that they found this niche where they just want to be the guys who make these traditional old school JRPGs, and for some reason they still work for us. So I don't know if that will always be the case, but right now it does. So I don't know.
Let me ask you guys a question. Let me jump in here for a minute. I don't have a lot of experience with the Dragon Quest series. It's not one that has really captured my attention, so I don't have a lot of knowledge of it. But I'm kind of wondering, in reference to all this talk of changing or not changing, even though the mechanics of Dragon Quest, from what I can observe, seem to be basically the same. That sounds kind of confirmed from what you guys are saying. Is Dragon Quest the kind of game where the structure remains the same, but the story is really what drives people forward? Because I've heard several people mention Dragon Quest stories as being pretty interesting, or as the quote-unquote real reason to keep playing them. I mean, do you guys notice that? Because for me, in comparison to something like Zelda, where Zelda's mechanics basically stay the same, and the story basically stays the same too. I mean, there's also, there's always tweaks and nudges here and there, but to me, when you play a Zelda game, you're not really playing it for the story. You're playing it because you want to get the boomerang, or because you like the way the dungeon structure works. But is that true in Dragon Quest? Would you guys say that the stories are what keep you coming back, or what is it? I mean, how do the stories play into it?
I think, let me answer this, Mike, because it ties back into what you were saying with the Dragon Quest team. The stories are really a standout part of it, but they're nothing particularly amazing either. This is the really hard part to describe, because again, I keep going back to like charming and these sort of basic words, because they don't try to overtell any story. They stick to very classic archetypes and things like that.
Structure. Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, they add just enough. We've talked about this in the past about how like there's certain rules that these guys should follow. And I think for the most part, the Dragon Quest team, they follow those rules, and and yet at the same time have enough of a unique twist. And going back to the team element for a second, I think it cannot be underestimated how big a deal that that Yuji Horii and Akira Toriyama have stuck with this series for so long, and I think even more so than Miyamoto has with Zelda, because it's like, what does Miyamoto really do on these games anymore? Like, I don't even, he's like sort of like an executive guy at this point. He's not really like still the main guy. Like Yuji Horii is still like the main guy making these games, and Akira Toriyama is still like designing these games. And here we have like one of the most celebrated manga artists of all time. There's something to be said about that. When you have this kind of level of talent, just sort of stick with these series. And it's sort of like what Mike is saying, but I give it up. I give a little more credit to it in that, yeah, they sort of found their niche and sort of stick with it. But at the same time, we're also talking about just very high level of creation here, and you don't get that by sort of like, starting from the ground up every single time. You have to stick with it to a certain degree. And I think that's what these guys have done, and more so than Zelda, because like I said, I'm not sure how really involved Miyamoto really is, and how many times they've had to hand it off to a different guy and things like that,
For me, and I almost entirely agree with Chi. I just add the one thing about Dragon Quest stories that sort of appeals to me is that my complaint with RPGs, JRPGs in particular, is not that they tell the same story over and over, which I have bitched about, but the real complaint there is that these newer games try to tell you the same story, but they try to convince you that it's somehow this new thing when it's really not. So the Dragon Quest guys will just give you this sort of archetypal basic story, and they'll add little flourishes and things here and there, but at the end of the day, they're okay with that, and you can almost respect them for that, because they're not trying to convince you that this story is some big profound thing. It's just a little story to get you through the game, and I guess that's sort of my problem with modern RPGs is that they're so friggin' emotionally overwrought, whereas Dragon Quest never gives you that melodrama feeling so much. I mean, there's stories and there are important things that happen into them, but they're still just kind of simple stories, and they don't try to like convince you that they're like fucking rewriting Homer or something like that. So,
Sorry, just one final point though. But even though it's simple, it's still not like dumbed down or anything like that. It still feels pretty great. You know what I mean? Yeah, they're very basic, but at the same time, it still works.
Yeah, they're very engaging.
I just don't want to undersell it, you know?
No, definitely not. I mean, there's definitely something to those stories, and they do work. But I think I appreciate them because they're just very honest in what they are. They're never trying to convince you that we're writing Shakespeare or something like that. It's like, this is a story about a kid who's like going to join a band of other kids and save the world, and that's it. They don't try to dress it up in any fancy way or anything like that. So I can appreciate that level of honesty. So,
all right, we do need to move on. I do have one more question for you, Chi. When this game was first announced, there was a bit of fear, outrage that the series was moving to a handheld. Fear that the series would be regressing in quality. I assume those fears are not founded. That the Dragon Quest IX is okay on a handheld.
Well, it looks great for a DS game, and it looks great in general. If you ask me, just from again, you have Akira Toriyama, you can't go wrong there, really. Although none of you guys are Dragon Ball fans, so what are you gonna do? To me, actually, it was perfect when I heard that because Dragon Quest has always been like the people's champion. They've never tried to create these epic sprawling universes and CG graphics and Star Wars Episode 1 with like a million things flying around in the background. That's like so not Dragon Quest, So to me it was actually perfect when they moved it to the DS because that's a system that's just all about the gameplay, all about the solid stuff, and solid stuff. What the hell does that mean? What the fuck?
It's all about the solid stuff. I think that's that's a box.
Species.
Yeah. It's not crap.
All right. Well, Chi, thanks so much. Dragon Quest IX on store shelves now for the Nintendo DS. Also for the DS is Etrian Odyssey 3, The Drowned City. Now, it's not out yet, but our own Brad Gallaway has a copy using whatever Brad Gallaway skills you have to obtain early copies of things. This comes to us from Atlas. So, Brad, bam, I assume that's a 9.5 or a 10?
It's up there. I don't know. I haven't settled on a number yet, but it's actually really good. I'm really glad.
We do love Atlas.
Brad has given Atlas games negative reviews before.
I have. I can't say that whenever an Atlas game comes in that it's a love fest. I mean, they have some really, really well done things, and they have some that are maybe not so well done. But in general, I think it's safe to say that I'm an Atlas fan. I like their style. They've got good people. They know what they're doing 9 times out of 10. You can't fault Atlas.
I love
but
Atlas.
Etrian Odyssey. What's that?
I love Atlas. Crazy about it.
Well, you should. I would be surprised if you didn't.
I suspect there are a lot of people listening to this show that do not know what is it Etrian or Etrian?
I say Etrian, but I don't know that there's an official pronunciation. I guess it could go either way.
I think this is probably the least known franchise that we're talking about on the show. Can you give us a little background on what Etrian/Etrian Odyssey is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really kind of old school redo title. Basically, what it is it's the third in a series, and actually all 3 of the games have been pretty fantastic. You start off by creating a party from a number of different classes, and there's no limit. I mean, you can pick 5 fighters, you can pick 5 mages, you can have a mix. I mean, one of the strengths of the game is that there's a lot of freedom for the player to mix and match, create, and they put a lot of control in the player's hands. But once you create your party, the whole point of the game is to get to the bottom of a giant labyrinth, and there's a number of floors, and you just kind of go through and it's like one long dungeon crawl. But although that may sound like it's off-putting to some people, the genius thing about it is that it's kind of like a really new school interpretation of old school ideas. If anybody grew up playing, really, really old like pen and paper RPGs, or even some of those NES games where there were these brutal dungeons and there was no such thing as a map at that time, you'd often find yourself tracking down a piece of graph paper or just like a legal pad and making a map for yourself so that you could get through the next level. Well, that same concept is in Etrian Odyssey, where the top screen is where the action happens, and the bottom screen is a map. And to me, this is like one of the best implementations of the DS hardware that I've ever seen. And it's interesting because I do want to give props to Atlas, because I think out of all the developers and all the games I've played for the DS, I think Atlas capitalizes on the DS more effectively and more logically than anybody else, and Nintendo included. So I do want to give props to them. So what you do is on the bottom screen, you have this map screen, and what you do is you draw. So every time you take a couple steps in this labyrinth with your characters, you look down at the bottom screen and you draw, and you're like, okay, well, this was a safe area, so I'm going to mark this safe. And then you walk a few more steps, and there's a locked door, so you mark this locked door on the bottom screen. It sounds really tedious and really just like, God, why would I want to draw my own map? I mean, are we past that these days? But really, there's something just incredibly like therapeutic and soothing and just really just warm and fuzzy about drawing your own map. It just recalls all these really positive feelings. I mean, it's kind of nostalgic, but at the same time, putting that level of control in the player's hands, it kind of gives you ownership of what you're doing. You really plot your own course, and you really feel responsible for finding your way through. And the good thing is that if you die, and people often die in Etrian Odyssey, it's very difficult. But when you die, you get to save all your map data, so that when you die, the next time you come back, you already know what it was that killed you, trouble spots to avoid, and that sort of thing. So it's really, really great game. I love it just to pieces. I love the different characters. It's really one of the high points for me. Customization is king in this game. And although it doesn't sport like really fancy graphics, I mean, it's on the DS, of course, I do love all the different characters. And that's one of the strengths the series has always had. Honestly, this third installment of Etrian Odyssey is, I think, the best. And a large reason for that is I'm just amazed at how diverse the developers have been in crafting characters. I mean, this time around you have your standard damage-dealing classes, you've got your tanks and such, but there's also a couple classes that are just like way out of the blue and just really bizarre, and they work really well. I mean, for me, one of my favorite classes right now is the Prince or the Princess. Mine's a Princess. So what this class does is it's really kind of like a teamwork kind of class where they don't have a lot of attacking power, but they have a lot of buffs for your team, so you can like increase your attacking power, defensive power. But also, it has a class with spells which are like healing spells, and rather than being an instant, I cast a spell, my character is healed, they're kind of contingent on these different qualifications. So like if your prince has full life at the end of a turn, then everybody else in the party gets a life boost. And if your prince survives at the end of the battle, then everybody in your party gets life up. And if your prince is alive as you're walking through the dungeon, every step grants you more life. So it's like a really this portable fountain of youth, fountain of rejuvenation for your party, and it's really effective and powerful, and it makes you guard that person more than you probably would with any other class. So it's an interesting spin, and it really makes you think strategically. Another interesting class is the farmer, which I think a lot of people who have been reading up on the game have been kind of making fun of, or think, what good is a farmer? What does that do? But to me, the farmer class is probably the most interesting class because it sucks in combat, but it has so many other really positive peripheral skills that to start this game out, you really need one, I think. I mean, for example, they can find rare items a lot more often, so it helps you get more money from the start. You can up one of their skills to increase everybody's earned experience. They increase the effectiveness of campgrounds when you're in the labyrinth, so when you heal yourself, you get a lot more of a boost from it. I mean, it's really cool. It takes a really different viewpoint on the use and implementation of party members, and it really makes the player think strategically about who's in the party and why they're there and what they're doing. So from that perspective, I think Etrian Odyssey is a really brilliantly intelligent game that is really difficult. I mean, it's very difficult for a turn-based game, but at the same time, if you think about it and really apply yourself, I mean, you're going to really go far. And it's really rewarding when you do well because it's such a difficult game. It's not one that you can just brute level through and buff your characters up to level 99 and steamroll, because it doesn't work that way. The characters and the enemies are so tough that if you're not doing things smartly, like you're just not going to progress. So it's difficult, but it's rewarding.
Let me ask you this, Brad. Many of the things that you just said, the methodical nature of the gameplay, the difficulty, the descending, down a single dungeon, reminded me of Shiren the Wanderer, which was a game you turned me on to earlier this year and that I enjoyed very much. Now, Etrian is clearly not a roguelike, but there are similarities there. I mean, if somebody dug Shiren, would they also dig this?
I think they very well might. I mean, they are pretty drastically different games in a lot of respects. I mean, Etrian is a very much a traditional turn-based RPG dungeon crawl, whereas Shiren is like like you said, it's a roguelike where a lot of the elements in the game are randomized. It's almost based on luck and how well you can use the things that you find as you go down the dungeon. They're different, but I think that the traits that are common are that the player is asked to really engage their brain to a much greater degree than the average RPG, I would say. And I mean, I don't say that as an insult to RPGs or RPG players, but in both of those instances, no, I'm serious. I mean, it's like in some games.
But you're also right, because you could just attack your way through, through the whole game, basically. Yeah.
Right. And I'm basically always right, so that's fine too. Mm-hmm. But what what I want to say is like you said, in some games you can just power level, like you sit there, fight the same imps or ogres or whatever for like an hour, and you come out and you've got like 1 million gold and 99 characters, and it just doesn't work like that. Like, you need to actually think. Like in Shiren, you have to manage your items, you have to really think creatively, make the best with what you've got, and there's a lot of luck in it, so it's a real kind of fly by the seat of your pants kind of thing. And in Etrian, it's a very difficult game, although I will say that I think Etrian 3, the one that we're talking about now, is much easier than Etrian 1 or 2. Even though they all have been really, really good games, they're really well known for their brutal difficulty, and that's very true. I mean, this is the kind of game where you take 3 steps out from the starting point in the very first dungeon as soon as you put your party together, and you're dead because the enemies just killed you. So it's very, very difficult, but it's easier this time around. I think that the classes give you a much better chance. I think there's more opportunity to do things in a safe manner without fear of being annihilated, and it is something that really requires you to think. And I gotta say, I mean, it's like, in general, I would say I'm not really a fan of hard games, but I think that as time goes by, increasing the difficulty while requiring players to think strategically is really something that I really am enjoying more and more, and I think that we're seeing more and more games that really do it well. I mean, there always have been games like that, but just lately it seems to me like, Demon Souls was one that was, billed as being extremely difficult, but if you thought about it, you could get through it, relatively, easily. Shiren is another one, Etrian Odyssey is another one. I mean, there's a number of games where you can't just power through it. You can't just turn your brain off, level up, and move. Like, you have to actually think, and that's a quality I really admire.
Etrian Odyssey 3 doesn't hit stores until, it looks like, September 21st. So are the first 2 games, like other Atlas games, are they impossible to find if people wanted to check this out in advance of picking up number 3? Are they going to have to go on some crazy hunt or pay $300 on eBay?
Well, I've heard. I think Chi said that he saw them recently, but I've been looking for them lately, and I haven't seen any for like a while. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were pretty impossible to find. I mean, Atlas games in general, when you go to the older titles, I mean, they disappear and they don't really come back. I mean, people don't really trade them in, and the print runs are usually pretty small. And Etrian Odyssey is one especially that the GameStops around here, when Etrian 2 came out, I did the review for that, and I went out of curiosity to check to see how many copies came in. And at that time, the GameStop near me had 2 copies. So 2 copies with that never got restocked. I mean, you don't have much of a chance to get something there. So I would certainly recommend anybody who's even remotely interested in the game, pre-order it, pick it up, give it a try, and if you don't like it, you can guaranteed sell that thing on eBay, no problem.
Although on GameStop, the first part is going for $10, so I mean, it's not a particularly rare game in terms of its value.
But did you see it, though? Because I haven't seen it. I mean, it may be priced that low, but I have not seen it. I have not seen it in a long time.
Well, both part 1 and 2...
here once in a while.
Both part 1 and 2 actually show up in GameStop. Like how the really out of print games don't even show up when you search on them. But both 1 and 2 of Etrian Odyssey show up on GameStop, and you can actually do a search in terms for your zip code and see which GameStops have them. So it shouldn't be too hard to find them, actually.
I would disagree, but go ahead and one of us will be right.
Fine. I'll let you know if I find them or not.
It sounds like it's worth looking for. Maybe it'll be easy to find, maybe it won't, but it's worth the hunt. We'll take a break. When we come back from that break, Puzzle Quest 2 and Death Spunk. Stay with us. Welcome back. We've got two more hot RPGs to talk about, Puzzle Quest 2 and Death Spunk. We're going to start with Puzzle Quest 2, and for that we'll turn to Mike. Mike, my first question about this game, why doesn't Puzzle Quest 2 have a crappy subtitle like all the other games we're talking about?
I think it's because Electric Boogaloo was already taken, Tim. That's just my guess. I don't have any inside skinny on that, but that's what my sources tell me, that they really had their heart set on Electric Boogaloo and it was just gone. So
what's wrong with the return of Puzzle Quest?
That would be perfect.
That would be pretty good too. I guess maybe the marketing people just weren't up to snuff. Didn't think of that one. Maybe we should be working in game marketing, obviously.
Clearly.
That was more of a joke at you, Tim, for not even throwing that out there.
I thought that was like the really obvious joke, but I
never stopped you before.
It's true. That's
now the really obvious joke would have been Puzzle Quest 2, not nearly as bad as the game we just put out. So
yeah.
So, technically, Infinite Interactive, the developer on this game, developed like 9 puzzle games between Puzzle Quest and Puzzle Quest 2. So, theoretically, this is like Puzzle Quest 11, but it is getting the official title, so this is the official successor to Challenge of the Warlords. Mike, what did you think of it?
Actually, I'm really mixed about it. I have some things that are in the game that I like a lot, and then I have some things that are a little like head scratching to me. So let's this is the positive show, so I'm going to dwell on the positive things mostly. So everyone, especially because I'm always negative. So Puzzle Quest 2 is interesting.
No.
Yeah, me no. Negative. I'm fucking all sunshine and roses 24/7. So. I didn't spend a lot of time with the original Puzzle Quest. I like goofed around with it a little bit and basically said, "Oh, this is neat. It's like Bejeweled with an RPG, right?" So, but my problem is like I don't really give a fuck about playing Bejeweled like at all. It's just not one of those games I'm into. But when the opportunity to play Puzzle Quest 2 came along, I was like, I should do this because I didn't really spend any time with the first one or any of the games in the interim. So this is like a chance to sort of like experience it and figure out why everybody's so excited and everything. So when that opportunity came along, I jumped on it, and I've been playing it quite a bit, mixing it up with a little Half-Life 2 because I'm like way behind on video game stuff since I got my Xbox back. But off the bat, I will say that for like I think it's 1,400 Microsoft points to get this game. It's a lot of fun for that money. I mean, what's that work out to? Like $14 or something like that? Crazy.
Bucks, something like that.
It's like something cheap. So for that money, I would certainly say this is a really good game because like there's a ton of shit to do. I mean, there's not like a lot of variation in what you do, but it's a lengthy game. I've put like probably 15 hours into it already. So that's really cool. You're definitely getting your money's worth. They have like changed it since the first game. Like in this new version, like all good sequels, they've upped everything basically. So what sort of happened is like now you can equip weapons and armor and stuff like that, and they've added like these gauntlets. So like instead of just making 3 colors for spell points and stuff, you can actually attack with this with these weapons you have, or use the shield to get some extra defense going and stuff like that. But the game still plays the same basically. You get quests and you go out and you like point and click your way through boards and encounter enemies. And when you encounter an enemy, it goes to a Bejeweled board, and basically there are colors and skulls that do damage and then like these gauntlet things that will power up your weapon attacks. And basically you have hit points and the enemy has hit points, and it's just a race to knock everybody down for to 0 first and move on to the next thing. So if you've played the original Puzzle Quest, this is cool because it definitely ups the ante type thing in terms of gameplay. There's more to do to it. My thing was at first was like, my attitude was like, well, this is like Bejeweled with, just playing Bejeweled. But if you look at the game as like an RPG where you just play a little bit of Bejeweled once in a while, it's actually pretty cool. So it's like all your attitude, I guess. So for me, it was like, yeah, I may not be the biggest Bejeweled fan in the world, but it's actually pretty fun because you're like not just making these chains of colors to get points, you're like making it to kick the crap out of some lizard person. So I kind of like that. And they have taken this this whole Bejeweled element to another level too, because like now instead of just fighting this way, you also get like doors are not able to be open, so you have to like go onto a Bejeweled board and make matches to make these little door icons, and then make the door icons chain to do damage to the door in a certain number of turns to get it open. Or if there's like a pile of treasure, you go to a board that has like these different icons on it, and you have to make chains of them. And like if you make so many, it gives you like rare item chests. And if you make a chain of that, you get the rare item. But while you're doing it, it's also closing up the board like level by level. So you're going to lose a lot of stuff too. So you have to really think about it. So it's pretty cool. But again, if you like to play Bejeweled, it's really awesome. If you're like sort of like not maybe so much into Bejeweled, it's a little tougher sell because it's really just a lot of playing Bejeweled over and over and over. But I do the one thing that I really want to say about the game that I appreciate the most is that I think it's really cool the way these guys have sort of bridged the gap. RPGs are sort of a niche genre for like hardcore gamers for the most part, and Bejeweled is definitely not a hardcore game, so from a niche genre. So they've sort of done this cool thing where they've put these two different kind of games together into one and sort of like bridge the gap. I could almost get my mother to play this game, so she likes her Bejeweled. She doesn't have a clue about a turn-based RPG, but she would understand this. So I think it's really cool that they've done that. And all in all, I'm pretty impressed with the game. It's not like my favorite game of the year, but it's definitely fun, and I've had a good time with it.
There was a point in the original Puzzle Quest, I would say roughly halfway through, where you, as the player, out-level the enemies to such a degree that you're effectively invincible. You can't lose, and the role-playing essentially becomes irrelevant because you're just so incredibly powerful. How is the difficulty curve here? Do you find yourself losing matches, or are you winning everything?
No, actually, I have not out-leveled the enemies yet. I've had points where I've lost matches. And the funny thing about it is like I chose to play a barbarian. I kind of regret that. I should have picked like the rogue or something. Seems like it might have been a little more fun and interesting because barbarian does get some spells and stuff, but I don't know. I just don't find them very exciting. But it seems like a lot of things I fight have more hit points than me, so. It's definitely been not like super hard or anything like that, but there is a certain element of luck involved to it with the board. So like if you don't like, I've noticed either I suck at Bejeweled or something, because I only get a lot of like you make 3 and that's the end of your turn. If you make 4 or more, you get an extra turn. So I'll make like 3 and the computer will go on like these runs of like 7 turns in a row where they make 4 somehow. So everything just like falls right into place for them and they're like pounding the shit out of you for 7 turns basically. But it is interesting because it's one of those weird games where you can be down like fucking 50 hit points below the guy you're fighting, and yet somehow you can still eke out a victory. So I find that kind of interesting. But I haven't run into that point yet where I'm just an invincible god. I'm hoping it's coming, though, because I like that.
And who doesn't, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I play RPGs, so I can build little gods and just crush everything in my path. So,
Brad or Chi, did either of you try the demo or pick this up?
I played the first one. I played the hell out of the first one. I really loved the first Puzzle Quest a lot. It was really brilliant. And my wife is playing Puzzle Quest 2 right now, so I've been watching over her shoulder. I don't have any hands-on experience, but watching it, I'm kind of like, looks okay. I mean, it didn't look like a disaster like the last Puzzle Quest game, Puzzle Quest Galactrix, which was just like painful beyond belief to play. So it looks definitely like a good thing, and I will certainly play it, but it didn't seem like enough of a new spin on the thing to make me want to jump into it right away. Chi?
No, I haven't played it.
I did try the demo, and it plays great. I don't think it was different enough to, I wasn't compelled to purchase it. I found the new overworld interface to be a little kludgy, like walking from NPC to NPC. There were like too many button presses. Like you had to press a button 3 times to get to the person you needed to talk to, and I just found that just inconvenient. But maybe I just wasn't used to it at that point.
Yeah, the overworld map is a little odd. I mean, especially like it'll show you which path to go through, like it'll give you a lighted question mark on the way you're supposed to go, and like you can do that, but you'll miss a bunch of crap along the way, so I like to wander off the path. I try not to pay attention to it. But yeah, it is a weird overworld map, the way you sort of just click your way through it and everything. But I mean, for a $15 game, I'm not going to complain about that, I guess. I mean, it just seems like one of those things. It's like I'm just really more concerned with the core gameplay, and that's pretty fun. So I'm happy with it, actually.
And my last question for you, Mike: the NPCs have yellow exclamation marks over their heads.
Yes, they do.
Did it get that World of Warcraft itch by any chance?
Yes, it did. That just took me back to all those hours in WoW.
Cataclysm.
Yeah. No, it's not happening. It's not happening.
Yeah, we'll
no
see.
chance. No
we
chance.
Will see.
No
we
chance.
will see, sir. Puzzle
Uninstalled.
Uninstalled. Oh, it can always be downloaded again.
Oh no.
Did you erase the save files after you uninstalled it? That's the question.
Everything on it is off my computer, so yeah, not happening.
It's all in the cloud, man. It's all in the cloud.
Oh, God.
I was saying the other day I should just sell my fucking account, so there's like no danger at all. But there isn't anyway, so.
Well, Puzzle Quest 2 available now on the Nintendo DS, Xbox 360, XBLA, iPhone. You can get this on your iPhone, folks, as well as Windows. So last but not least, it comes to me, and it comes to Deathspunk. Now, in the game, they pronounce it Death Spank, but clearly that was like an error of the voice actor.
Clearly.
But just because that's how everybody knows the game, I will refer to it as Death Spank.
Isn't that kind of like how in Final Fantasy 12 they keep calling the Marquis the Marquis or whatever it is? They like totally butcher that word every fucking time they say it in that game, and I'm like, how the hell does Square release a multi-million-dollar game and nobody knew how to fucking pronounce the word Marquis?
That is hilarious.
Ugh. Sorry to derail you, Tim.
No, not at all. Death Spank. This is a hack and slash action RPG. It's available for the Xbox Live Arcade as well as PlayStation Network. It's $15, just out this past week. In terms of gameplay, very similar to other console hack and slash games. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, X-Men Legends, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, though the clear predecessor of this game is Diablo. It is structured very, very much like Diablo 2. Visually, the game resembles... I actually initially thought of Animal Crossing with that sort of curved horizon, that curved environment, cel-shaded. It has some Wind Waker, has some Okami. It looks great. It's actually gorgeous for a $15, downloadable title. It looks wonderful. You play as Death Spank. He has been tasked with obtaining something called the Artifact. We don't really know what the Artifact is, but everybody seems to want it. And in the game, it has been obtained by an evil prince, and you are tasked to getting it back. Deathspank himself, something of a dim-witted, bombastic, headstrong fellow, kind of in the vein of the Tick. He really reminded me of the Tick. He sounds like the Tick. He acts like the Tick, with a little Ron Burgundy mixed in.
And Bruce Campbell.
Yes, indeed. He is, in fact, a cliche of many, many different characters. The hook here is supposedly the writing and the loot. And frankly, I found both of those hooks to be wanting. I was pretty disappointed in this game, actually. The designer here is Ron Gilbert. He is best known for his work on the classic LucasArts adventure games, including the first two Monkey Islands. That's probably what he's best known for. He's something of a legend. He's something of an icon, although he's disappeared for the past few years. I think he last consulted on the Penny Arcade role-playing games. But still, you hear Ron Gilbert, there are high expectations. Kind of like Tim Schafer, high expectations, although not really delivering here, much like Tim Schafer hasn't really delivered recently. People should know that Ron Gilbert did not write the majority of the dialogue in this game. It was another guy named Sean Howard. So if you were hoping to get actual Ron Gilbert dialogue, you may think you're getting it, but you're actually not. Although Sean Howard does a really good job of aping Ron Gilbert's style, with the exception of the humor. This game really thinks that it's funny, but it's frankly not all that funny. It's occasionally clever, but the real problem with the dialogue is that there's just too much of it. When you start this game, the characters are just talking and talking and talking, and what you really want to get to is the hack and slash and the looting. It really feels, like I said, it's overwritten. It feels like it's trying too hard to impress. The dialogue is peppered with dated pop culture references. Within the first 2 minutes, Deathspank says, "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?" Which is a 21-year-old reference to the first Batman movie. It's like, really? That's the most current pop culture reference we could think of here. All the dialogue is delivered by voice actors. The voice acting is fine, but the problem is all of the dialogue is simultaneously displayed on the screen in text boxes. So by the time you've heard the joke, you've already read the joke. And so eventually I found myself just hitting the B button to get through the dialogue. And once I got into about my third hour of play, I just stopped reading the dialogue altogether because it just wasn't interesting me. The story is just a generic fantasy comedy story. It's not special in any way, shape, or form. So the writing is a failure. What about the loot? Frankly, also a failure. It's
Wait. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying, Tim, but I got to say, I thought this was the love show. Is there any love?
Yeah.
Deaths, or
What happened to the love, man? It's gone.
I said it looked good. I said the game looked beautiful. There's some love there, right? I thought I was going to love this game. I really did. I felt very confident when we were putting the Love RPG show together that I was going to like this game, and it just failed on almost every level. As far as the loot goes, there's very little variety in the loot, and as you gain more powerful loot, you don't really feel any more powerful, which was not the case in all of the other loot games that I love, like Borderlands or 2 Human or Diablo or World of Warcraft, or most recently Torchlight. Really, as you collect loot, the enemies in the areas that you're going to, they don't scale with you, but as you complete quests, you go to new areas where the enemies are harder, and you just hit them with your sword. You're not really gaining any new special powers. You're just hitting a level 10 enemy, then a level 12 enemy, then a level 15 enemy. Here's the biggest problem with the loot. Collecting the loot. Loot drops off of enemies onto the playfield, and you pick it up just by walking over it. The only way you know what you have picked up is if you look in the upper left-hand corner of your screen. The loot you pick up, the name fades in and fades out very quickly. Now, if you happen to be looking up there, you can see that you've picked up an item. But if you're in a particularly heated battle and you're fighting, say, 15 spiders or 15 chickens at once, you may end up picking up 3, 4, 5 different items and have no idea that you picked them up. You won't even know that you acquired loot until you happen to go to the inventory screen. That may be 5 minutes later, which defeats the entire purpose of a loot game. The idea behind a loot game is you slaughter an enemy, you see the object on the playfield, you see the name, you see the color, it's a purple epic, bam, you feel great about it. And say what you will about 2 Human, but 2 Human nailed the loot game. When something awesome dropped, it was colored differently, a magnificent fanfare played, and you got excited about it. Deathspank, not the case. You may pick up the best item in the game and not even know it, and that is a failure of a loot game. Inventory is screwed up. the whole idea behind loot is you compare what you have equipped to what you've picked up. And, as far back as Final Fantasy games, 20 years ago, when you hover over an item, it tells you your strength will increase by this much, your magic will increase by this much if you equip this item. Not so in Deathspank. It will tell you this item is strength 150. But you have to remember that, hover over the item that you have equipped, and say, oh, well, that's strength 120, and then do the math in your head, which isn't hard, but it's incredibly inconvenient and annoying when every RPG and every loot game has been doing it differently for 20 years. It's a huge step backwards. And like I said, the loot is generally pretty boring. There aren't that many unique weapons in the game. There's a chicken cannon that shoots chickens. That's, something. But there are very few things like that. I will give the game credit for naming loot interestingly. It's kind of clever. For example, one of the first weapons you pick up is a broadsword. Later you get a broader sword. And later you get the broadest sword. That's kind of clever. I like that. I'm going to give them credit for that. Look, I'm going to try to say a couple of good things about it. Ron Gilbert's adventure game history definitely comes through here. While many of the quests are of the, kill 10 rats variety, there are a handful of adventure game style quests. You do have an inventory in the game, and you can combine items together much as you could in the old LucasArts adventures. So, for example, there's one quest giver who needs you to bring her red horns. Well, there are demons that drop white horns, and then in another part of the game world, there are cherries that can be pulled off of trees. And if you go into your inventory, you can grind the cherries into a dye and then apply it to the white horns. They become red horns. It's a very classic Sierra and LucasArts style puzzle. And they're few and far between, but when they come up, they're actually kind of fun and a really nice change of pace from just the complete tedium of this game. For those who are worried about those kinds of puzzles, they have a hint system. In the world, you can pick up fortune cookies, and you can open those fortune cookies, which act as hints for the different quests. And the more hints you open up, the more specific the solution becomes, to the point where it will just straight up tell you this is what you need to do next. So it's not a bad game. It's not a horrible game, but it's a very hollow game. It's a very tedious game. The first hour of the game is really no different from the fifth hour of the game. There's not a lot of thinking to be done. It really feels like you're just going through the motions, mindlessly hitting block and attack and block and attack. Not recommended, certainly not worth $15, and I do regret the purchase. Now, Mike, I know you played the demo. Brad, I know you played the demo. Am I wrong, or did you guys agree with me?
I would say you just kind of confirmed what I was afraid of. I mean, I saw this game at PAX last year, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, why the hell is everybody so excited for this? Like, I mean, just taking a look at it, and honestly, I didn't know who Ron Gilbert was. Like, I didn't play those games. I didn't have a strong PC background because my family never really had a computer for a long time, so I missed out on all those. And when I heard Ron Gilbert, I'm like, well, who the hell's Ron Gilbert? I don't have a clue. So the name wasn't a draw for me, and just looking at the gameplay, I was like, this looks really dull and bland and brown and boring, and I don't know why anybody's excited. But, I gave it a chance, and then all of a sudden people were like, oh my god, it's out, and I try the demo, and it's like, who cares? It's just, the writing felt really dull and flat to me. I didn't laugh at any of the obviously, over the top, trying so hard to be funny that they're straining to be funny jokes, and the obligatory bacon mention in the first 2 minutes. Yeah. I was like, okay, this seems like you guys really want to be artful and clever, but you're just not. And I got to say, starting off the game with this kill a bunch of chickens quest or whatever was a real big turn off, and then seeing that the character had 4 weapons to start with. I mean, even though that seems like kind of a good idea, you have a crossbow, an axe, a sword and something else. Isn't that right? Like you start the game with 4 different things. It was like, why am I starting with that? Like, shouldn't you offer me the choice? Shouldn't it be kind of a high point of the game that I get to pick what kind of weapon I want? And it just was hitting all the wrong notes for me. And I was like, there's no way I'm dropping $15 on this. And hearing you talk about it, I'm like certainly glad I didn't. I mean, Mike, what did you think?
Yeah, like hearing Tim talk about it kind of confirmed my worst fears based on the, I played through the demo like twice. It gives you like 20 minutes to play it or something like that. There's a timer on it. I felt the same way. Like, I thought visually it was really pretty because it starts you out in that first area where the witch is and like everything's purple and dark and really sort of over artsy and just really neat looking. And then suddenly you get past that area and then it's like just looks like every other fucking action RPG you've ever played, basically. The Death Spank as a character, definitely the humor really tries too hard. I like to call him Ron Gilbert because, everybody's a hockey player where I'm from. So, I thought if if somebody had said that made that joke in the game, it would have been funnier than any of the jokes I actually saw. So, which is a sad testament to how not funny the game is in spots. What really bugged me about it, though, is like, I didn't like the combat at all.
Yeah.
Like, I just found myself just fucking using the crossbow over and over and over because running into, like, melee fight anything was just not fun and a real pain in the ass. Like, a good hack and slash game, you should be able to run into a horde of enemies and, like, fucking slaughter them with your sword or hammer or whatever you have, your axe. But in this game, it just doesn't feel right, and it just feels clunky, and so it was just more interesting to me to stand back and plink things with like 45 bow shots instead. So definitely, go ahead.
I was going to add something to the combat. You're absolutely right, and it's not just that you can't run into a group of enemies, because as you go through the game, blocking becomes much more important, and you have to get into kind of a rhythm of block, attack, and if you don't block, you're dead. You have to block. And the problem is,
a good hack and slash, you should never have to block in.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, you just should never have to block in a hack and slash. That just defeats the whole fucking purpose of that genre.
Yeah. It should be like for like boss characters, like maybe a block for like at the big dragon at the end.
But to wander into a horde of just regular peon enemies, I should never have to fucking block because I should do so much damage that I should just be slaughtering things left and right.
Absolutely. And what happens is the enemies bunch on you to the point where it is impossible to block everyone. And the animation is, it's all piled up on top of each other. So even if you try to block, you can't, because you may be blocking one guy. You can't see what's going on. What I would recommend to anybody who is planning to go the distance in this game is drop the difficulty down to easy, which I eventually did because the game becomes just too much of a chore to not do that. And then you'll find that you can rush into groups and get pretty far with just spamming the attack button. But again, it becomes really unsatisfying. There's also no real impact to the melee. In a good hack and slash, you punch somebody, you feel it. There's a good hit, there's a rumble in the controller, and that's just not here. You're just watching the animation. There's a real disconnect between what you're doing on the controller and what you're seeing on the screen, almost as though there's a slight lag, and that seemed odd to me as well. But yeah, it's just a complete misfire, and no co-op for those.
Yeah, that's what really made me mad. Like I had talked about this game with Tim before it came out, and I was like, "Oh, are you going to play this?" Because I was interested in it. It was one of these games I was kind of looking forward to because I love loot whoring and hack and slashing and all that stuff. And so I'm like looking at it, and it's like, "Oh, looks like it would be great to do, online co-op." And it's like, of course it doesn't have it because I never in my fucking life ever want to play online co-op anything with anyone except the one time a game came along that I would actually want to do it. That's not a feature. So, and I just wanted to add, I'm totally with you on the loot system. It's horrible that you can't tell if something's an improvement over what you have. This is 2010. I shouldn't have to fucking do that. That's like Final Fantasy 1 crap, if that. I mean,
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So far, this for me is like shaping up to be. I don't want to say it's the disappointment of the year because it's not like. I mean, I haven't played the whole game, but just from the demo, it was definitely a bit of a letdown. But it is definitely a disappointment. I expected a lot more from this than what I got, and I couldn't really see spending $15 on it right now.
Don't do it. Don't. Do not spend $15 on this game. I mean, if you're even slightly interested, wait for a sale, but you will have buyer's remorse very quickly. So much for being positive, but it was this or Final Fantasy 13, and believe me, if it was Final Fantasy 13, we'd all be feeling suicidal right now. So be happy I went with Deathspank. There we go. So that's our 4 games. Any final thoughts or conclusions that you would like to make before I wrap this party up? And I will point to you, Chi Kong Lu. Any final thoughts? Not to put you on the spot, Chi. Now, this can be final thoughts about RPGs, or it can just be final thoughts about life in general. If you would like to make a statement about LeBron James, you may do so at this time. The floor is yours.
Nah, I'll spare you that pain, man, and I don't want to bring any more negative energy to this.
Yeah, we were doing so well, Tim.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go back to
I had a conclusion, you guys. I mean, I was going to say I was really proud of us. I mean, I think that we heard people's feedback from the show. We felt we were too negative. We decided to make the responsive choice, and kind of give people what they wanted. And at the same time, I'm really proud that we were not able to get through that, and we had to get negative at the end.
Had to get negative. We just can't do a whole hour of not being assholes. This is as close as it's probably ever going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah. If this isn't a positive show for you, you better just stop listening now.
Yeah, it's time to bail.
I could have tried to spin Picross 3D as an RPG.
RPG.
And then it would have been just gushing with love, but I couldn't find an angle to make Picross an RPG. Alas, so there you go. I think you're right, Brad. I think we took that feedback and did a great job crafting an experience that hopefully people will enjoy and cherish for the weeks to come. Mike, any final thoughts?
I just wanted to say that it was just great to be positive for a week until Tim totally derailed us at the end, and but we still love him.
That it was Tim that derailed us, and not me.
I mean that's it. It wasn't me. Yeah. It's always Brad, me for the most part, and then Tim is usually our shining, happy little star.
Right.
And yet this week we all role reversed. So
exactly, I was thinking the same words, man. Role reversals.
I didn't use phrases like every level is like unwrapping a present. I didn't use the word whimsy.
No.
So
I mean, I had these in the show notes I had crafted beforehand. Words we were going to hear tonight. Mind-blowingly awesome. Changed my outlook on life. Gave me hope for the future. All this stuff, and none of it turned up in Deathspank. I'm really bummed about that.
I do have two words for Dragon Quest IX. I want to call it artfully streamlined. That's how I want to describe.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, you may. I will say of everybody who spoke tonight, I think Chi, you probably did the best job of convincing me to pick that game up. Because I'd kind of already decided not going to pick up Puzzle Quest. Etrian Odyssey kind of intimidates me, but Dragon Quest IX, I think you've sold me.
Great, because I was feeling like we were underselling it, and I just felt bad about that.
Oh, no.
We didn't even get into any of the gameplay details, but it really it wasn't necessary at the end of the day. It would be too off topic in some ways.
It's a JRPG. You kind of
exactly. Yeah, I don't want to pretend like it isn't, because it is. Then I would start sounding like a fanboy if I tried to start talking about how the class system is really innovative. Yeah, fuck no, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We've said it.
It was really innovative back in Final Fantasy V. So.
Right.
Well, let's formally wrap this up then. To our audience, if you have comments on this episode, leave them at GameCritics.com, and while you're there, check out our forums, reviews, etc. Let me remind you also that the GameCritics.com podcast is available through iTunes and Zune. If you subscribe at either the music store or the marketplace, leave us a review. It's only through your kindness that we can achieve the celebrity we crave. So please, write us some kind words. Thank you so much to everyone for listening and coming back after our E3 episode. My thanks to Chi and Brad and Mike on behalf of the entire GameCritics.com family. I'm Tim Spaeth. Good night and bon chance.